Okay, I think we can start. So welcome everyone to GoodWe Plus, and this is the second module. So today we will go through how to commission the inverter and install it and commission it, and how to add the plant to SEMS. As last time, we have Lindeve and David from South Africa with us. So if you have any questions or something like that, you can just ask them in the Q&A section, and then either me or David will try to answer them as good as we can. Normally when we have GoodWe Plus, we just show how to do it in general, but this time we will do a study case of the STDT Generation 2 inverter. So I will try to go through how to install it, how to commission it, and how to add it to SEMS. And I will also have it with me here today, as you see in the other video. So I will try to show how to do it live as well. Yes. So a bit of the content for today is, first I will talk a bit about the connection of the inverter and what you need to know there, then commissioning, and then the connection to SEMS. So first off is the preparation before installing it. So what you will need for the installation is for sure the GoodWe installation manual. In there you will find everything that is necessary to know to install the inverter, the exact cable size and such. Everything is in the manual, so please have an extra look in the manual if you have any questions. In addition to that, you will also need some basic tool sets as well as some multimeter, and we do also recommend to have one with an amp clamp so you can measure the current. And also please have the correct protected equipment with you so that everything goes well. And also then for the commissioning, you will need to have the app, or in case if your inverter has a display, it's also possible to commission it directly on the inverter. However, we do recommend to do it on the app. Most often it's a bit easier to do it with the app. There are, however, many different apps, and it can be confusing to know which one you should use. I will try to explain it simply. Basically, there are 3 apps. You have 2 different apps for commissioning. So depending on if you have a grid tie inverter or a storage inverter, you will have one of the other apps. And then the SEMS app is only used for monitoring. Those other 2 are only for commissioning. So for grid tie inverter, you use the Solar Go, and for storage inverter, you will use the PV Master app. Today, the STT Generation 2 is a 3-phase grid tie inverter. So we will use the Solar Go app. And also, before you start installing it, please check the content of the package. It differs depending on which inverter you have, so please make sure that you check the manual and check that the package corresponds to what's included in the manual. Different locations on where you can install it. Our inverters do have IP65 ratings, so they can be installed outside. However, we do recommend to keep them away from direct sunlight, so otherwise they will heat up quite quickly, and also keep them dry and clear out of snow. I will just hide this one a bit so you see it better. All right. And then for the mounting of the inverter, mounting plate is included in the package. However, there are some few things that you need to observe when mounting it on a wall. First off, please observe the maximum tilt allowance. So mainly they're supposed to be installed straight upwards. However, it is allowed to tilt them 15 degrees backwards, so leaning towards the wall. But do not tilt them in any other way, because that will influence the cooling system too much, and then the inverter will not function properly. Please also then observe the distance between the inverter and any other object, so either to the next inverter or to the wall. This also can affect the cooling system in case it's installed too narrow. And the specific details for your specific inverter, so if it's an MT, an hybrid inverter, a HT or XS, it all says in the manual the correct distances. So when you know all this, then it's time to mount the inverter on the wall. Please then observe the holes in the mounting brackets. Then you just drill the holes and insert expansion plugs, and then fastening the mounting brackets before you can hang the inverter and then screw it on the side. For the AC connections, you need to also observe the cable sizes. This also depends on which inverter you do have, so please check this in the manual. The same thing with the AC isolator specifications. So please also check the circuit breaker, that you install the correct circuit breaker on the AC side. So depending on the model, you will need a different kind of AC breaker, or different rated. Yes, and then when you're all prepared and the inverter is hanging on the wall, then it's time to install the DC and the AC side. Here's a quick overview of most of our grid tie inverters. As you see, they look quite similar on the front side, and then every connection is then done on the bottom side. There are a few different types. So for example, for the SDT G2 as well as the MT, they come both with and without screen. So either you have this one with the screen, or you have a bit more LED LEDs. And also they come in different sizes, and the first sizes up to 8 kilowatt are cooled naturally, and then from 8 and upwards they're cooled with fans. So they do look a bit different, so always check the manual so you know that exactly where every connection is. Something that's also good to know is that on the side of each inverter, on the left-hand side, you will have a sticker that explains what different LED lights do or indicate. So either if it's on, if it's feeding to the grid, if there's an error, if there's some communication error with the Wi-Fi module and such, you can see that here. And this information is also found in the manual. On the right-hand side of the inverter, so on this side of each inverter, you have some technical information. There you will find the name of the inverter, the type, the serial number, and so on. This is mostly possible to also find online or in our manual, but there is, however, one thing that's only listed here, and that is the check code. The check code is like a verification code that you will need when you add the plant to our portal. Then you will need to insert the serial number, and then you will also need to have the check code to make sure that you actually add the correct inverter. Here, today we will talk about SCP generation 2, then I will show how this one looks. You can also see here on the video, you also see the connection here. Basically on the left side, you have the two different PV inputs, so two different MPPTs, one input per MPPT. Then you have the DC switch here, off and on, it's just manual switch. Secondly, after that you have the Wi-Fi or any other communication module. So you can have a Wi-Fi module, you can have a LAN module, 4G module, Bluetooth, etc. And that's basically just connected here to a USB port. After that, you have the two different communication ports. So one port is for the smart meter and connecting through RS485 to other inverters, and the second one here that's not used so often, it offers a remote shutdown function. So it's basically it's a bridge where you can connect any relay that can trigger this switch. I will show that later. And then the probably most important thing is the AC output. And before connecting to the AC side, please check the values at the grid connection point. Please measure the voltage and the current to check that it's correct and you know which phase is which. After that, we also do recommend that you install proper AC breakers. So in case something happens, you can turn off the AC output. So firstly, you can start with connecting the AC side. So then you basically just use the proper wires. Please check the manual again that you have the correct wires. And then you connect the 3 lines as well as the neutral and the ground, and connect it to the AC output. For the DC output, before you do that, on the side of the inverter, there is a separate ground or earth cable that you need to connect. Please do that before you connect any other DC cables to the inverter. Also make sure that the DC switch underneath is turned off before you connect any cables. And then also please observe the correct cable sizes for the PV inputs. And then you can just connect the PV inputs here. And again, make sure that this DC switch here is turned off. For the communication module, as I told before, you have some different communication modules, either Wi-Fi, LAN, or 4G. If you use 4G, you will need a Bluetooth module to commission the inverter. But basically on the SCTG2 inverters, it's quite easy. This is just an USB port. The module is also a USB compatible, and you just push it right in and it will work. The maybe more tricky part is the communication devices. So in case you want to connect a meter or connect it to a second inverter that then goes to a data logger, then you will need to connect it to this port here, the upper port. On the lower port, you have this remote shutdown or dread function, which I will talk a bit more about later. Here you see how to connect the upper port. So it looks like you have the 6 different connections, and it's a bit tricky to know exactly where they go, but there are actually numbers here on the plastic. They're a bit difficult to see, but they are there. And basically you have the 1, 2, 3, and 4, which is the RS485, either B or A. And then the 5 and 6 is the meter for plus and minus. So yeah, please check that and make sure that you connect it to the correct input. So in this webinar, I will also show how to connect the smart meter to the inverter in case you want to limit the power export to the grid, and that's then connected here to number 5 and 6. So here you see how to connect the smart meter. So for a 3-phase inverter, you need a GM3000. And basically you connect here on the top side, you have the connection pins for the CTs. And then you have the connection pins for the inverter. And on the lower side, you just have the voltage sense. And please, when you connect the CTs, check the direction. Each CTs goes to each line, so line 1, 2, 3, 1 and 2 and 3, and make sure that it goes from the loads towards the grid. So it says K to L. So K is then the loads, and L will be the line or the grid. And they should be connected just before the power meter, before entering the grid connection. Exactly. Connect just before meter and check the direction. Those are the most important things. Also, the voltage sense, it's important to connect it on the same side as the CTs. So the voltage sense should not be connected here before, then the readings will be wrong. They should be connected as, ideally as close as possible to the CTs, but just make sure that there are no loads in between the voltage sense and the CTs. Here you see the exact connection for each CTs. So for phase 1, you have CTA, for phase 2, you have CTB, and for phase 3, you have CTC. As you see here, for phase 1, you will connect to the 7 and 8, so you will start from right to left when you go with the phases. And the last 2 here will be connected with RS-485 directly to the COM port of the inverter. On the bottom side, you will have to connect the voltage sense. And here you need to observe that here they go from the other direction. So you go from left to right. So please make sure that you connect the correct voltage sense cable to the correct phase that corresponds to the correct CT. Yes, and now firstly, we will have some quiz, and then after that, I will show how to connect everything live. So, if you could launch the poll. Yes, so here are the different questions. So firstly, where can you always get the complete GoodWe manual? Is it the GoodWe store, the GoodWe website, or the GoodWe support? Question number 2, what is the maximum allowed tilt angle for the STT-G2 or mainly any other inverter for that? 90 degrees backwards, 15 degrees backwards, or 15 degrees forward, or none allowed. Question 3 is what is important to do before connecting the DC cables? And this one we went through as well. And where should the CTs be connected? That was just the previous slides. So that one should be clear, I hope. And the same thing with the voltage sense. I will give you a few minutes to answer the questions, and then I will show how to install it live. I see that there is some confusion on some questions. I will just clarify so that it's clear for everyone. With the tilt angle, it's mainly not allowed to tilt it in any direction. However, there was one tilt angle that was allowed that would not affect the cooling system of the inverter. And also, where the CTs should be connected, that is really, really important. I will go through that again when I show it live, but yeah. And the same thing with the voltage sense. It's also important to know where they need to be connected so that it gives the correct measures. And if you have any load in between the voltage sense and the CTs, then it will not really be able to measure the correct power, because you will always have a voltage drop when you have a load. So it's important to connect them as close as possible to the CTs. Okay, we'll give you 1 more minute and then we will close the poll. And in case you have some difficulties seeing the poll or answering the questions at the moment, then we also provide in the chat, we will provide a Google form. I think that Lynn could post it there. And there's a Google form where you can just answer the questions. And also, I want to add that after all 3 modules, we will share the slides with you, and most likely the video will also be uploaded somewhere. Okay, I think we can close the poll now and continue with the webinar. So, okay, now I will show you, or try to show you, how you can install the STT Generation 2. So here you see the inverter. This is in our office. We do not have any PV modules here yet, but we do have a DC source here that will act as the PV modules. So I will try to do my best to show how you can connect it. So firstly, please check that the DC switch is off, and then you can connect on the AC side here. Here, just again, as fast repetition, here you have the PV inputs, then here you have the DC switch. Here is the USB port I told you about. Where you connect the in this case Wi-Fi module. Here you have the two COM ports. It even says COM there underneath, and here you have the AC output. So you can take these off, and here you see. I hope that you can see that on this video. So here there are actually 5 pins, so to say, and here on this one there are just 2, and they are closed. They are shorted with a bridge, and this is the remote shutdown function. So actually, you could pull 1 cable from this pin and 1 cable from this pin, connect it to some relay switch that you can then trigger. And in case this is open, the inverter will not work, and when it's closed, it will start working again. So it's like an extra safety function where you can turn off the inverter in case something happens. And also here on the side of the inverter, you have the sorry, the camera is stuck. Here you have the serial number as well as everything, and here on the last part here you have the check code, and I will show that later how to add it to stats. Yes, so let's start with the AC side. So I will show how it is all connected here. So basically, this is the AC cable that I have here. So I have connected all the lines here to this one, and you get a little tool with it. It's like a small don't know how to call it in English, but it's a small key with 6 edges that you can twist and turn. Do not turn it too tightly, just enough that the cables are stuck. And then after that's connected here, you pull this one on top, screw this on, and inside here there is a rubber ring that needs to be fitted in here so that when the next thing comes on, then this one will tighten it and make it waterproof. So please screw this on tightly to make sure that everything is well sealed, and maybe you see here the rubber ring. And then when all that's done, you can also see here, I don't think you see that in this light. I'm hearing that I'm sharing the wrong screen on my phone. 1 second, sorry for that. We'll stop share this one and yeah, I think it will, this is as big as it gets, the screen on my phone. But basically here you also see the numbers, the neutral, the PE, the line 1, line 2, and so on. But when that's all done, then you just connect it here to the AC out, and then just tighten this one here. And it says you can feel a little bit of a click, and then it's tightly fastened. Secondly, you connecting the DC side here, you have the PV inputs there. But before doing that, you should connect the PE cable here that's located on the side. And that's basically just a screw that's tightened here. And then you have the PE cable. And make sure that you have the correct size of the cable so that it's safe. When the PV is PE is connected, AC is connected, then you can connect the DC inputs. Make sure that the DC switch here is off. And after you have clamped the correct connectors onto the PV sides, then you can't really do anything wrong. Please measure first that you really have plus and minus to the correct one. But then after that, they can really just go into one of these connectors. So basically, just like that. Secondly, is the communication module here. And in our case, we have a Wi-Fi module, looks like this. And you see it's just a USB thing, and you just basically just plug it straight in. And then that's done. However, before doing that, I do recommend connecting COM port, otherwise it's a bit tight to get in here with your hands. So now I will show how to connect the communication device. And basically, this is how the smart meter looks like when you get it in the package. This is, there are usually 3 CTs. There is only 1 connected now, but usually 3 are connected. And then here on the last 2 pins, as you see, then you have, it's already a connected cable. This is because for our hybrid inverters, you use this connector here, but for our grid tie inverters, you need to unscrew those here and then pull out this connector and get some other cables that you can then put into this, this COM port here. I will show here how I have done it. So here you see the smart meter with each connected CT. So you have the plus and the minus of 1 CT, the plus and minus of 2nd CT and 3rd CTs. And here on the end, you have a normal RS45 cable. Basically just here, the cable, and then on the side, other side, on the inverter, there is a little thing that comes in the box. And here you see the different pins that I showed you on the presentations. So you have the 1, 2, 3, 4, and the last two is the 5 and the 6. And those two then goes into, let's see. So here you see comes a few things with the inverter. So basically you put this one through here. Or firstly, this one needs to be on the other side with the little rubber thing here, and the cable goes through one of the holes. Then you put this one through here. And then lastly, just fit this one into the plastic thing. And there is a little cut here, so you can see how it should be fitted. Now I just need to find it myself. Oh, there. Okay. So here you see the cut on this one. There's a little cut there. So this one then goes in like this. And then when you connect it here, you will hear a little click, and then it's stuck. Then you just screw this on top. And lastly, you have, let's see on the other side, already pre-wired this like in a cooking video, so everything is already done. Here is the rubber thing, and you just put it in here and then tighten it with this bolt here, so that the rubber is tightening here on the hole. And then this one is basically just connected. After you connected everything here, you can't really do anything wrong. There is also a small cut here, and that you then can just plug into this one here. And then you tighten here. See what I'm doing. You just tighten it here, and yeah. And then in the end, it's all done. Yes, and the other cable here, the RS45, that goes to the smart meter here. And then on, just to make sure that you see everything. And connected to on top here, you have the CTs. And the CTs are quite straightforward. They're just CT clamps. So you just put the cable in here and then close it like this. There's a small click. Yeah. And here it even says on the CTs, it says CTA, and it says from K to L. So it means that you need to connect it from house to the grid, from the loads to the grid. And these needs to be connected just before the grid connection point. So before the house meter. There's usually a house meter measuring the energy, so just connect it to the correct phase before that. And on the bottom side of the smart meter, you see here neutral L1, L2, and L3. And here you need to connect the voltage sense cables. And they should be connected as close as possible to the CTs. So there should be no loads in between the voltage sense connection to the AC line and the CTs. So they should be on the same position. Yes. What more? Yeah, lastly, you just connect the Wi-Fi module here. And then when everything is connected, please check that everything is correctly connected. And then you can just turn on the DC switch to on. And in our case, we have a DC source here. So I will just turn that one on like this. And now we should have around 219 volts going into the inverter. And then when you turn the DC switch on, it takes a while, but then you will see here on this one actually has a display, so you could commission it with directly on the inverter. We will, however, use the app. And now you see that it will turn on. So you have this one starts shining, but then it's off because it's not feeding any power right now. This one is blinking 2 times and then off. And that means that there's no connection to the internet. This one is also shining red. That means that there's an error. And if you look on the screen, you can actually see that it says utility loss. And that means that the inverter is not connected to the AC line, which is true in this case. This is not connected to anything. So it's exactly as it should be right now. Okay, so now I will leave the camera here, and then I will go through how to commission the inverter. And then after that, we will look how to add it into SAMS. Okay, so I will move spotlight. I will share. Presentation, one moment. Share screen. And we were here. Yes, so I hope you can see the screen now, the full screen. If not, then David and Lynn, please let me know and I will fix that. But so for commissioning of inverter, it's quite straightforward. If you thought that installing this one and just basically just plugging in everything in, then the setup is almost as easy. For the grid tie inverters, we do use the Solar Go app. You can find it in the App Store or wherever you find apps. When you open it, then basically you connect to the inverter. I will show how to do that later on. And then when you are connected, you just click on basic settings. Here on the bottom side, you have, wait, I don't have my laser pointer here. On the bottom side, you have 3 different menus or options that you can click in the bottom side menu. The home one will show an overview of the system, what's happening at the moment. Right now we will only see that it's supplied by some DC power, but then later on you will see the whole thing live. Here, when you click on more, you have some different settings, and basically what's important is the basic settings. When you click on the basic settings, you will get this menu here up, and you sort of need to go through this menu and just fill out everything here like a form. Firstly, you need to select the safety code. That is, let me take away this one. When you select the safety code, in this example, it's Denmark here already added, but then you will get to another window, and then you just choose the region, if it's Europe, if it's in Africa, or wherever it is, and then you choose the correct country that will have the correct grid settings. In case you don't find your country in this list, there are also some default options. So it's called 50 Hertz default and 60 Hertz default. You can choose those 2, and then you can set up specific parameters yourself. Afterwards, when you chose this, it will let you know if it was successfully done or not. And then you will be able to see all the grid parameters here. You will see the safety code that you chose, and then all the grid parameters. And these ones you can export by clicking here, and then you will get the whole screen. You can actually scroll further down, so it's a long list. But you can export it all quite easily with just a click. After that, if we go back, we see that after that you need to select the time. That's quite straightforward. You just set the time that you have. Here, password, we do also recommend that you change the password. Usually this is a standard password that when you connect to the inverter as an installer, you just have a 1, 2, 3, 4 password, and it's recommended to change that here. Same thing with the grid type. Please choose if you have a star grid or a delta grid. Most likely you will have a star grid if you don't have any, especially if you have a neutral and earth installed. Shadow scan is a function that you can activate in case you have a lot of shadow going over your PV modules. This will sort of make the inverter to scan for the maximum MPPT more frequently, but however, during that time, you won't have any generation. So in case you have no shadows, it's not recommended to activate this. The COM address is for if you connect multiple devices to a data logger, then you can choose exactly which COM address that you will use for this inverter. The router connection is for the internet connection, and this is where you set up the internet setting of the inverter. So basically you click there and then you search for the correct internet that you have in the house or in the facility, and then you enter the password and that will be set. Yes, I went a bit quick. But basically, it's select correct time, change the default password. Also, when you connect inverter's Wi-Fi, so when connecting with SolarGo, you will open the Wi-Fi settings on your phone and then connect to a Wi-Fi hotspot created by the inverter. The name will then be Solar Wi-Fi, followed by the last 4 digits in the serial number. And the password is not complicated. It's just 1 to 8. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8. Very easy to remember. And then when you log into the SolarGo, and if they ask you for any specific settings when you click on, or a password when you click on the different settings, the password is just 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's what you change here. Yes, for a system with much shadows, for connection to EC Logger Pro, which is our data logger. And here I will quickly show you how to set up an internet connection. So this is how it looks like to set up the internet. You basically just choose the Wi-Fi network in your facility, and then you input the password here. And then afterwards, you just click on set, and that should connect it to the Wi-Fi. And then in the future, when connecting to the inverter, you don't need to connect directly to the inverter's hotspot, but you can just connect to the facility's Wi-Fi. That's also possible. And that's basically everything done in the basic settings. After that, you can go to the advanced settings. And in the advanced settings, you have some extra grid parameter settings. So for example, in the basic settings, if you didn't have a country code and you chose the default one, then you can tweak the grid parameters here so that they are correct for where the inverter is installed. So here you can change the default grid parameters. Here you can set the QU and PU power factor curve in case you don't want to, or you're not allowed to export any power into the grid. Then you can set the correct power limit setting here. And in case you do have connected the smart meter, as we have done in this case, then the CTs will measure so that the inverter can produce max power for the loads, but it will not produce more than the loads can take, and therefore not export any power into the grid. If you do not have a smart meter installed, it will just limit the power output of the inverter. So it will just be like a limiting factor. here you can change the power factor of the inverter, for example, and in case you have a inverter with AFCI function, then you can turn it on or off in this menu here. And basically, when you have done all that, then you're finished with the commissioning of the inverter. So it's basically just the menu where you click here on the right hand menu, and then you just go through the list. And most likely you will not need to change anything in the advanced settings and just basic settings, and then it goes really quick. When you're done, you will see here on the overview, you can click here, and then you will have an overview of the whole system performance, and then you can check it if it looks okay and if everything seems to work. Yes. So now to the second questionnaire. Let's start that, please. Yes. Okay, so which app is used to commission the grid tie inverters? This one I have said also before. This should be quite straightforward. This is the app we will use now when we commission our SDT G2 inverter. What is the default password to connect to the inverter hotspot Wi-Fi? So for the hotspot Wi-Fi, there is a very simple password. I hope you all know that. And then there is another password that you will need to access the inverter setting as an installer. And that's similar as the other, but half as difficult. And I'm guessing if you have already installed a few GoodWe inverters, then you already know these things. Okay, we'll give you a few more minutes to answer the questions, and in the meantime, I will set up for the commissioning of the inverter.
1:15，对，我稍微拖的话，我恐怕到时候让那个张琳帮我打开一下。
Good. I will mute them. Sorry for that. Let's see. Okay, I am trying. Yes, we can end the poll in 1 minute. In the meantime, I will just set up the next part of the webinar. Yes, okay. So, yes, we can end the poll now, and I will then share my screen. So just before we start, could Lynn or David, could you just verify that you see the screen of my iPhone?
Yes, you can see it.
Okay, great. So now I will go through how to commission the inverter. So basically, we will use the Solar Go app here. 1 second, I will show you here. So you will use the Solar Go app here. You just enter the Solar Go app, or actually, sorry for that. Firstly, to connect to the inverter's Wi-Fi, you will need to go into setting. You will connect to the Wi-Fi of the inverter, and here you see it's called Solar Wi-Fi, followed by the last digit of the inverter. And then you click on this one. I've already done this step, so I will skip it now. But you click here, and then you just enter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, and that will connect you to the inverter's Wi-Fi. When that's done, you just go back, and then you open here, you open the Solar Go app, and here, when you refresh, you will see the devices that are in the vicinity. And in case you are commissioning several inverters and you're in the range of all of them, to know which one is which, you can tell from the numbers here, which are the last digit of the serial number. And then when you're ready, you just click here on this one. That will prompt then ask you for a password, and as you are an installer, you just press on installer here, then enter the password, that is 1, 2, 3, 4, and then afterwards you press on log in. Now you will have the home screen here, and as you see, our inverter is connected to 219 volts from the PV system. We use a DC source in this case just to demonstrate how it looks. It is not yet connected to the AC grid side. I have just shown how to connect the cables, but otherwise it's not really connected to the grid. So yeah, this is what you see here. Then here you have some parameters of the inverter. You can also see some alarms here up in the corner. So here you see that there's an AC failure. It is not connected to the grid. Same here with the utility loss, as I explained before. When ready, you click here on the more. This will take you to the settings, and basically then you go into basic settings here. Start from the top, and here we also start from the top, and we select the correct country code. Click there on Germany or on the country, and then here is the list of countries that you can select. As you see, there are quite many, and you can choose other continents here as well. In our case, I am actually located in Germany, so I will choose then Germany here. Click there. It is successfully connected, and then afterwards I can go backwards. This will take me to the sides of all parameters. So if we scroll up here, you can see all the parameters. In case you need to send this into the DSO, then you can just simply click here on export, and that will export the whole picture of all parameters that you then can send. After that, we do click on here on time. There are then auto time sync or manual settings. You can try auto time first. If that doesn't work, then please choose manual settings. Sometimes it's already recognized time on the inverter. In this case, it's already correct. So 2021, September 7th at 5 to 11. After that, you go into here password, and here you can change the password that you need to enter the settings of the change the settings of the inverter, and it's highly recommended that you do change this. You can change this to whatever you want to. When done, you just click here. This will disappear, and then you click on set in the bottom corner. Then going back here, you select your grid type. So you have either a star grid or triangle grid, which is also called delta grid. Select the correct one. In this case, it's already selected. Then we go to the next type. And we will have to either choose to activate shadow scan or not. In our case, we have no PV module, so that's not a problem for us. So I will leave that off. Here on the COM address, you can see the communication. It's actually no PLC communication, it's just a normal communication that's done over Modbus RTU with the RS485 cables. So here you have the protocol type, and here is the COM address, and here you can change this in case you have multiple inverters. So they each need to have a original address. Lastly, what's important is here the router settings, and if you click here, you will see how to select your Wi-Fi. Here, then click on this here to select the correct Wi-Fi. I have already done this, but basically you just select the correct Wi-Fi. So you click here on this one, for example, could be Wi-Fi guest. Then you enter the password here, blah, 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 blah. And when you have entered the correct password, then you just click here on the bottom on set. And now we have gone through all the basic settings of the inverter. In most cases, you should already be done then. But in case there are some extra things that you need to do, then you can click here on advanced settings. And then here you can change the grid parameters to a specific value if you want. You also have level 1 and 2 protection. Here you can change some more parameters, and you can even change here to level 2 to get some additional. However, please keep in mind, do not change these if you don't know what they do. Back, we have then the curve settings here, and then you can set specific QU curve, or this is the power factor here, for example. Yes, it's loading a bit. So you can activate this. If going back, here is the power limit settings, and because we do have installed a smart meter, we will activate this, and then activating it here, then you can then input the power range here, and as also the percentage. And then here you need to input the CT ratio, and the CT ratio is, it says here on in the example here. So the primary and secondary current of the external CT is 300 amps divided by 5, which is, which gives you the primary. So for the smart meters that are provided by GoodWe, so the one we saw before, those smart meters are supplied with special CTs that has 40 milliamps on the secondary side and 120 amps on the primary side. And if you divide 120 over 40 milliamps, then you will get 3000. So this is already set. And sorry, my phone locked. So when that's done, you just go back. And then here is also a function for AFCI functions and some other settings. But that is not really necessary. And apart from that, you do have some here firmware upgrade. You can check the firmware version of the inverter to check if it's correct. And if you have any troubles contacting the support, they might ask for the firmware version of your inverter. But basically that's done then. Then the inverter is commissioned, and you can click here down on parameters, and you can click here on data, and you will see everything here. Here you also have the model name and the firmware version, going back to home, then you will see how everything is working. Yes, and so that is the commissioning. Now I will go back to the presentation and will show you how to add the plant in SEMS. And then I will also show it on the phone. So we were here. I hope you see my screen now again. So connecting to SEMS. So basically for SEMS, we do have, we have two different versions of SEMS. We have the SEMS portal, which is the computer-based version, as well as the SEMS app that you can use on your phone. The SEMS portal is accessed through a web browser, and this is the preview of it. Basically, you have some status here of all your installed plans. So you can see which one are online and working, which one are some fault mode. Here you can also see some that are offline. Then you have some general statistics here at the top. You can sort them on these different categories. And then you have basically you have the list of all the installed plans. And also good to mention, if you want to know more and play around a bit in SEMS, then we do have a demo version. So you can, if you go to our SEMS portal website, on the top right corner, there is a button called demo, and there you can see these 3 plans. Yes. If you click on one of the plants here, then you will come to the specific plant page. And basically, it could look a bit messy, but here on the top left corner, you have a system overview of your plant, and you have the weather forecast. And here you have the latest measured power. Here you have the same statistic that you have for all plants, but just for this specific plant. This graph here, there are 2 different graphs windows, so to say. This graph window here shows the complete plant. So here you can sort it on generation, load, export, etc. It does depend a bit on which type of inverter you have installed. If you have a hybrid inverter, you can most likely see much more stuff than with an on-grid inverter. Here on the bottom side part of the window, you have the specific device settings. So here you will see all the different devices connected. And if you click on one of the devices, then you will see the model name, basically everything. And moreover, you can also click here on curve to get some more detailed or advanced graphs on very specific things. Sorry, I don't know what happened now with okay, now. So clicking on this curve settings there, then you will get to this page. It will look like one of these. So here are 2 different examples. Here on the top side, you have selected the current for PV input 1, string current in the first string. Here you have selected the this is the current for the MPPT, and here is the for the string. But basically here, here's the drop down menu, and you can select a lot of different stuff. You can select the current per phase, per string, per MPPT. Same with the voltage. You have the power. You have the temperature. You even have the Wi-Fi strings here, the RSSI. So in case the customer is calling and saying that the inverter is not connected anymore, then it could be due to some faulty Wi-Fi. And then you can check the Wi-Fi strings here. Shortly about the app. The app is quite similar as the portal, but just in another format. When you download the app, you have the login page here. You also have a demo version that you can access through this button here. Now I will talk about how to add the plant to your SEMS account, and this I will do through the SEMS app, which I found to be very smooth. Basically here, first when you log in, you have the overview of all your plants. To add a new plant, you just click here on the plus button here. This will take you to create a new plant page, and basically you just enter all the fields and then you click submit. So here you need to input the end user's email, then you choose a name for your plant, can be whatever. Then you can choose an address here. There is also a possibility to add it, to choose it on a map. After that, you choose the classification of your plant, either residential, commercial, or hybrid. And then you input the capacity, and please note that here it's in kilowatt and not watt. So if you have a 5 kilowatt inverter that we do have today, then maybe your PV system size is 6 kilowatt, for example. Here you can input the amount of solar panels, and this profit ratio here, this is basically just a scalar that is multiplied with the total generation of the plant. So in case you think that the power price is on average 0.22 euros per kilowatt hour, then you can input it here, and then on the main page of your SEMS account, that will show the sort of savings that you have done from generating your own electricity. When all that's done, you just click on submit, and the end user will then SEMS account for the end user will then be created with the initial password of GoodWe 2018, large G, and that's it. And you will also get a notification of this when you create the new plant. When you created the plant, then you need to add your devices, which are the inverters or any smart meter or data loggers. Basically, you click here on the, either you immediately add the device, or you click on the top right, bottom right corner of the app and click on add inverter. That will take you to this page here, and it's quite easy. I mean, either you can do it manually with entering the serial number and the check code, which is on the side of the inverter, and then you need to come up with a nice name of the inverter, or you can just use the camera of your phone to scan the QR code that's also located on the side of the inverter, and that will enter this automatically. And then clicking on add inverter, it's basically done. And then you can go to the front page of your SEMS portal, and you will see the monitor. You can see the newly added plant, you can see the generation, and you can also control some specific parameters through the SEMS as well. Yes, so now for the last questionnaire before I will show how to set it up in SEMS. So first question is, how can you connect the PV plant to the free SEMS portal? Is it only via the app, or through the web, or with both? Secondly is about the password that end user will become. I also mentioned that. And the third one is where the check code of the inverter can be found. And this I also explained before. I hope you do remember this. And as you saw when commissioning it in SEMS or adding the plant to our monitoring portal, it's important to have the check code. So we give you maybe, see that most have already answered. We'll give you maybe 1 more minute, and then I will show how to commission the plant in SEMS. Yes, so after this poll, then I will show how to connect the plants through the SEMS app. It's also possible to do it through the web portal, of course, but I find the app to be a bit easier. So it goes quite smoothly. Okay, I think we can end the poll soon. Yes, and I hope you see my phone screen again, the screen of my phone. So basically now, great, thank you. So basically now the inverter is connected to some power, and that means that the Wi-Fi is working. It's been connected to the facility's Wi-Fi, and then after that we can open our SEMS portal. And here you just log in with your installer account in SEMS, and then here, I will show that one as well. Just log out quickly. Yes, log out. Here is also Wi-Fi configuration. So that means that it is in case you have some difficulty setting up the Wi-Fi of the inverter through the Solar Go app or the PV Master app, then we do recommend that you can use the SEMS app as well. It could also work that you turn off put the phone in flight mode and only activate the Wi-Fi of the phone, and then it might work a bit better. But in case it doesn't work with Solar Go app, then you also have the possibility with the SEMS app. Yes, so logging in to your installer account. No. And then here you will see all the different power plants. Then to add a new plant, you just click here on the top corner on Add Plant. Then you have this one that you should now be familiar with. So I will now enter a email of mine. 123@gmail.com, for example. So let's say that that's the end user. Then you input a plant name that is GoodWe Office. You then after that, sorry, I need to show you. Then after that's added, then you click here to select the address. That gives you a map, and I will now add our office here location, which is basically here. And then when done, I click change this one. And then submit. And then it says that the local time is something specific, and if it's correct, then you can just click on ignore. Otherwise, you can choose another place. I will click on ignore. So that has now added the correct street name, and then the classification of the plant. Here you can choose some different ones. Ground mounted is for utility. Then you have commercial rooftop and then battery storage. We have a residential this time. I will add some capacity, 6 kilowatt. After that, we will add some modules, let's say 12 modules. You don't need to add all of this, but the one with the star is important to add. And then the profit ratio, and here you can basically also put anything. I will stick with 22. And then lastly, we will take a photo of the nice inverter or the plant. Here is actually the plant, DC source. And click on use photo. Nice, and then submit. And then you get this note here that a new account has been created with the email address. So there's the new SEMS account created with the end user's email address. So it's really important that you double check the email address that you enter for the end user. The initial password is GoodWe 2018, and then when you are fine with that, then you click submit. And that now, ladies and gentlemen, we do have created our plant. And then either you can click here on immediately add plant, or you can go into your plant page and then add it later. We will add it now directly. I click here. And then, as I told you before, you can either input this manually, but I find this quite nice. So here on the side of the inverter, you have the check code or the QR code here on the bottom side. Now my screen froze. Sorry for that, the screen froze, so I will show you how to do it otherwise. And you just scroll down here on your plant page, click on add, and the same thing will appear. And then we hold it over here. That will add serial number and the check code. You can verify that it's correct. And after that, you enter a name, best inverter in office, for example, and then add inverter. I have already added this to the PV plant, it looks like. Yes, I seem to have already added this one to another plant, so then you cannot add this one again. And therefore, it's important that you do keep the check code and the serial number for yourself, so in case you add it to some, or if someone have it, they can add it to another plant and then you can't add it to your plant. I'm sorry for that, but basically, if we go back, now we don't have the inverter added at the moment. It's unfortunately already added to another plant. But then if you could add your inverter here, then you would be able to see the inverter and the total generation and so on. And then you have some additional information here on the bottom. Yes, and that's how you connect the plant to SEMS. So that is basically it. And moreover, that is also the last slide of the presentation and the end of module 2. I do hope that you appreciate the live version of setting up the inverter. It is not what we usually do. If you have any comments about it, on how you think we can improve it, or if you liked it, then please let us know so we know how we can adjust this in the future. And if you have any more questions, then feel free to ask them. Otherwise, you can always write us afterwards and we will try to answer you offline. And the next module will be module 3 on Thursday, and that will be on troubleshooting and how our after-sales service works. And that will be held by David. So please make sure that you do not miss it. It's a lot of good tips on and advice on how to do it in case something goes wrong. Okay, I think we have no more questions from you guys. Then I just want to say thank you for listening, and we will send all the slides and presentations after the 3rd module. And see you then on Thursday.